Now, our world. Now it really is time for Our World. As part of the BBC's Our Planet Matters climate change coverage, Justin Rowlett reports from Antarctica.
Antarctica, the world's most remote and inhospitable continent. This is the story of a team of scientists who are trying to get to Thwaites, the so-called Doomsday Glacier.
No one's ever really been under Thwaites, and what Icefin's going to do is get up close to the seafloor and allow us to see what's happening in kind of a real way. Oh, look at that. Yeah, just go for it.
Yeah. What happens to Thwaites affects us all because as it melts, it'll drive up sea level around the world.
This glacier is part of a system. If all of that goes, you could end up with upwards of 3 meters of sea level rise.
But first, the scientists need to get there.
So difficult to operate here. All the planes are grounded. They're saying we won't fly anywhere.
One only does anything in Antarctica with the cooperation of the weather.
Antarctica is a place of extremes. It is the coldest, highest, driest and windiest continent on Earth. Capped by an ice sheet up to 5 kilometers thick, this continent contains 90% of the world's ice. I begin my journey in New Zealand.
I don't need your passport, that's all good.
They say travelling to Antarctica is like travelling to another planet, so here goes.
The US Air Force provides the planes. The safety briefing might be familiar, but nothing else about this flight is. I'm travelling with Professor David Vaughan, the Director of Science at the British Antarctic Survey. After flying due south for 5 hours, I get my first glimpse of Antarctica. Snow and ice stretching as far as the eye can see. Finally, our destination, McMurdo.
We are headed to McMurdo, which is pretty much straight off over there.
It is the last fingerhold of civilization, the most southerly town on Earth and the largest centre for scientific research on the continent. And out across the sea ice, the first peaks of the mighty Transantarctic Mountains. It is here in McMurdo that our expedition to the Thwaites Glacier begins.
So Thwaites Glacier is vulnerable, and there is nothing stopping a collapse once it really takes hold.
Thwaites Glacier is the size of Britain and already accounts for 4% of global sea level rise. The fear is if the melt rate increases, much of the West Antarctic ice sheet could go too. That could raise sea level worldwide by more than 3 meters.
Why is the glacier changing? Why is it being eaten away?
It's being eaten away because there are winds up here on the ocean's surface that are actually driving currents away from this ice sheet. When that happens, this water comes in underneath like this. This deep ocean water is really warm.
And that eats away at the glacier.
This normally doesn't happen. These winds have been increasing, and so more of this water has been coming up onto the continental shelf and interacting with this glacier.
The scientists say global warming has changed the wind patterns and sea currents, bringing warm ocean water to the front of the glacier.
We have loaded the atmosphere with carbon dioxide, we've set the temperature going up, and it will take...
Dr. Brittany Schmidt is in charge of a NASA-funded robot submarine called Icefin. The plan is to lower it almost half a mile through the ice to map conditions in the seawater below.
So Brittany, give me a tour of Icefin.
So up at the front, we have sensors that are going to make measurements of the oceanography, telling us what the temperature is and the salinity of the water, how much oxygen is there. In addition to that, we have a forward-looking sonar here that allows us to map the three-dimensional cavity, so it allows us to see the shape of the ice and its texture. No one's ever really been under Thwaites, and what IceFin's going to do is get up close to the physics, get really close to the ice, really close to the seafloor, and allow us to see what's happening in kind of a real way.
How much of a challenge do you think this is going to be?
Well, it's always an impressive challenge to do anything here in Antarctica, and much more so when you're, 1,200 miles from McMurdo. When you think about drilling through 600 meters of ice, drilled by the best people in the world, just to make an observation, is quite a challenge. And then to operate a moving platform through there is pretty special, actually.
IceFin may have a big task ahead, but not as big as the one that faced the men who stayed in this hut.
So this is a truly unique historical site, literally frozen in time.
It is the base camp of Captain Scott's ill-fated 1911 attempt to reach the South Pole.
Look at this. This is amazing. God, it's incredible. But I'll tell you what strikes you first is the smell. It really smells of kind of smoked fish. So there are all sorts of objects. The tin cans of the food that they ate on the expedition. So we've got some, what's that, tinned salmon, and that looks like a can of sardines. And here we've got cocoa, which was a huge drink for them. That was the sort of drink of the polar explorers. They'd make cocoa. And here is one of the biscuits, dry, hard biscuits, kind of ship's biscuits they are. Baking powder. So this is seal blubber. And what they'd do is they'd kill the seals out on the ice, bring them back here, they'd eat the meat and they'd use the blubber to burn in their stove to keep themselves warm, which is why it smells like smoked fish in here, because it's covered, you can see it's just covered with soot from the blubber fire. It's actually really ghostly, because you do get a sense of the people being here. Scott himself leaving from here, with that great ambition to get to the pole, and then of course dying on the way back.
And like Captain Scott before us, our plans are frustrated by the Antarctic weather. I'm beginning to understand why doing science here is so difficult. Then I hear a crisis meeting has been called.
The delays have got so bad they're going to have to scale back some of the science. I want to find out what's going on.
I managed to track down David Vaughan.
Well, I think there's a lot of ambitions at stake here. People have been working on these projects for several years already. So, when the bad news comes, I don't think it's quite yet, but the delays are continuing. Things are going to change, and that's going to mean a lot for some people out here.
So can I come to the meeting?
Rather you didn't on this one, Justin.
I mean, I'm not allowed in.
No.
So you're not expecting a difficult meeting, but...
No, I think, but we just need to let people get that news and process it and think about what they're actually going to do when they finally get in the field. Thanks very much.
Good luck.
Thank you.
When the meeting's over, I learn the weather is hampering efforts to supply spare parts to the plane we need to get to Thwaites Glacier.
There's parts coming down from New Zealand to get those planes functional again, so we have to sit and wait.
How many days behind schedule are we now?
I don't know, actually.
Why count?
I think we can still imagine that we can do 100% of the tasks.
You can still imagine?
I can still imagine that we could do, with the following wind, 100% of the tasks, but time's getting very, very tight now for us. So people are getting a little itchy and a little bit concerned. One only does anything in Antarctica with the cooperation of the weather.
Suddenly, the weather clears and miraculously, it seems the project is back on track. It's all hands on deck to get the kit boxed up and transported to the airfield, ready to go. And and the team are there itching to get cracking.
So we're super excited. We're out at Willie Field and we're finally about to get out on the plane out to Waste Divide. Can't wait to get out and start the next phase of the MELT project.
You can't fly straight to Thwaites. There's no ice runway that can take these big planes, so the 1,300-mile journey is done in stages. Waste Divide is the project's staging post in the middle of the West Antarctic ice sheet. This is where passengers, fuel and cargo are dropped off before being ferried on to the field sites on the glacier itself. The plan is only to stay here for a couple of days, but this being Antarctica, it's not long before the weather changes again.
So we've been out here for like, I don't know, an hour and a half, and this is the result, and it gives you an idea of why it's so difficult to operate here. All the planes are grounded. They're saying we won't fly anywhere for at least 3 days.
Keeping the camp from being overwhelmed by snow is a full-time job for the snowplows. The wind is gusting up to 50 miles an hour. The temperature is -20.
Check the snotsicles on this. Oh my God, that's absolutely horrible. I can't get it off.
I do manage to warm up, but I realise something isn't quite right.
My finger's gone all kind of white and looks a bit burnt.
I think you should go and see the doctor, just see if it needs a dressing on it, because it doesn't look right to me.
David is worried it could be the early stages of frostbite, commonly known as frost nip.
Can you feel that?
Yeah, I can feel it, but it's sort of...
It doesn't feel the same as the fingers.
It feels a bit numb.
So frostnip is a freezing of the tissue, but it's not a permanent freezing of the tissue. You haven't developed ice crystals in the deep tissue like you do with a full frostbite.
So I haven't actually killed the top of my thumb.
Not killed the top of your thumb just yet. Over the next couple of days, it's going to be more likely to get frostbite.
The cold and the wind and the vast distances here make the logistics of a big project like this very challenging. 2 ice-hardened ships brought hundreds of tons of fuel and cargo to a remote ice shelf. Then specialist snow vehicles hauled it 1,000 miles overland.
Everything was previously done by aircraft, and then as science projects grew and equipment grew, it became a need to do it more efficiently and more cost effectively. Each machine will pull up to 70 tons.
These vehicles have transformed the science that we can do in Antarctica, increasing the scale, the number of people and the number of scientists we can bring to bear on these problems.
6 people can deliver all the cargo for maybe 30 scientists. And then we can deliver the fuel that can operate 5 or 6 airplanes. We just truck along day from day. Nobody really knows where we are, and then we just suddenly turn up. Delivering bounty, ladders of fuel instead of sacks of presents.
But presents would be very welcome, because even in these extreme conditions, there are some traditions that have to be kept up.
So what are you doing?
I'm preparing us for Christmas at the South Pole.
And Christmas is not Christmas without a few carols.
They tried to get us to sing, but we didn't practice. And we don't have a song, so we told someone else to go.
Who are we competing against?
Lower Thwaites.
Lower Thwaites.
Yeah.
How many people at Lower Thwaites?
Less than here.
How many? There's 5 people, aren't there?
3, 2, 1.
Jingle bells, jingle all the way. Oh, what fun it is to ride on a one-horse open sleigh.
And it doesn't stop there. I knew I was spending Christmas on the ice and was all set to have to forego my turkey dinner. How wrong I was.
Kat and I made some salmon, turkey, ham.
That is quite a Christmas spread.
And an Oreo cheesecake.
That's amazing, eh?
It's great.
And all in West Antarctica?
Yep, all in the middle of nowhere.
Christmas is over and the storm has blown itself out. Time to load up for the final 400 miles to the glacier. Not in one of the big planes this time, in something much smaller. This is a Twin Otter, rugged, reliable and great on short runways, perfect for working out here on the ice. We're headed to the place where the base of the glacier goes afloat. It's called the grounding line and is where this glacier is melting. An advance party are already on Thwaites Glacier. Their job to map the area where the scientists are going to be deployed to make sure it's safe. The glacier is littered with deep crevasses, which could be lethal.
This is actually the first open crevasse we've driven into. You can see the layers here don't connect with these layers over here. This is a void, so this is the actual crevasse itself, and then there's kind of a crevasse right here.
Another team survey the site to pinpoint exactly where the grounding line is. It has taken almost 5 weeks, but we're finally at the front of the glacier. Until this year, only 4 people had ever been here before.
Oh my God. Hello, friend.
This is where Icefin is going to be deployed, but first they need to drill a hole, or rather melt one, using hot water to bore down almost half a mile into the ice. So task 1, create a vast reservoir of water using this huge rubber bath, which the scientists call a flubber.
We need 10 tons of water at the
10
end of
tons,
at the end of the day.
10,000 litres of water.
Then when we want to do the drilling, we'll pump that water using these large borehole pumps through those heaters over there.
So these are effectively boilers?
They're boilers. Basically, they're like an oversized domestic boiler.
Heat the water, get it hot enough to melt the ice, put it down the hole. I mean, it's taken us, what, 5-6 weeks to get here? Huge amounts of resources have gone into bringing the fuel and all the stuff you need. I mean, how does it feel to be the kind of the top of the
cutting bit? That is, yeah, there's a serious sense of responsibility. There's a huge amount of money, time and effort gone into this by a lot of people to get us here. Simple things can go wrong, and if you lose the borehole, then you've lost all the fuel that you've used to make that borehole. We're ultimately fuel limited. We've got a certain number of drums of fuel here we can use, and when we burn that, that's game over.
With the snow melted, it's time to start drilling, and that involves unwinding the longest hose pipe you have ever seen.
Threading the hose through the winch, so it goes around this capstan, and then that drives the hose up and down the hole.
They fire up the boilers, and it is melting time.
This is a historic moment. The first time anyone has tried to drill down through the front of what is the most important glacier in the world in terms of future sea level rise.
Slowly, slowly, the drill melts a 30-centimetre hole down through tens of thousands of years of ice deposits.
As you can see, it's looking okay. Keep going deeper, and
it's not looking bad at all.
It's all glazed.
Probably a lot better than we both expected.
After 36 hours, they finally break through to the sea below. Mission accomplished. Now it is time for Icefin to take centre stage. As it's lowered through the glacier, Brittany and the team ready themselves to pilot the robot submarine. It's more than a mile to where the warm ocean water meets the ice. Along the way, Icefin gathers crucial data.
Okay, we're driving forward slowly. It's a real moonscape. It almost looks like it has craters on it.
That is weird.
That's weird.
We actually kind of rolled up on this maybe half a meter of this very clear ice, and you could see the sediment-rich ice right above it through the ice layer, which was something that I'd never seen before. This is incredible. It is seriously like another planet. What is going on? We should let other people know, because this is really cool.
Hi, team.
Are you ready for weird?
Dude, I'm so excited that...
Get ready to have your brain blown. So this is a clear layer of ice. This part has a bunch of sediment particles in it, but let me introduce you to your new friend. There's a whole bunch of anemone things burrowing out of the ice.
Wow.
See his little tentacles? Piloting your own vehicle underneath the ice is a pretty cool experience. To get the grounding zone, you can kind of see the water column narrowing and the ice coming down at you and the seafloor coming out at you, and it's just this huge rush of energy. Oh, look at that. Yeah! OMG, stuff's getting cray-cray. We do see warm water making it all the way back to the grounding zone. So it's changing the base of the glacier right near the grounding zone.
Okay, yeah, I think we're actually coming up on the grounding point, so...
We're getting very, very shallow.
No one else is up. Oh,
That's okay, we're the only people in the world right now. We're seeing a whole new crazy thing. And that place is really important because it controls how much ice is coming off the continent and what rate. So taking a vehicle like this right there to map it out in detail means that we can really start to figure out exactly what's going on. We've been talking about this for 7 years, and to finally actually make it there is just incredible. Oh, yes! Oh, that's so cool!
Because of all the delays, the time spent at grounding zone is shorter than planned. But Icefin managed to complete 5 missions, one more than expected, and collected a huge amount of data. The Thwaites team is delighted.
This season has been tremendously successful. We've seen the warm water coming up from the continental shelf and making contact with the ice, and we've measured the rate of that melt. And to know that we are in a position to begin to understand those changes in a way that actually can shape the future of policy and of people's lives, that's a humbling thing.
As we leave, we fly over the main front of the glacier. The epic forces that are tearing the ice apart are all too obvious here. In some places, the ice has broken up completely, collapsing into a jumble of icebergs.
I'm surprised myself, sitting here, thinking about it, how emotional I am. I think it's, yeah, it's shocking, and you know, we should all be upset by what's happening here.
Do you come away feeling upset that what you've seen is a process of destruction, of destroying this huge body of ice?
No, I feel like I understand the planet, hopefully better. It's better to know how things are happening than to guess at it or to hope it goes away. We know there's been change that we'll have to accommodate, and this story is about how do we get together and try to fix things to make the world sustainable for ourselves and for future generations.